what J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, said at TPUSA, which was somehow uh, many people attacked him after these sort of comments. He was asked about the case of the U.S. aid and the support from the United States to Israel, and here is what he said.
I'm a Christian man, and I'm just confused why that there's this notion that we might have owe Israel something, or that they're our greatest ally, or that we have to support this multi-$100 billion foreign aid package to Israel to cover this, to quote Charlie Kirk, ethnic cleansing in Gaza. I'm just confused why this idea has come around, considering the fact that not only does their religion not agree with ours, but also openly supports the prosecution of ours.
Yeah, so let's say a few things about this. First of all, when the President of the United States says America first, that means that he pursues the interests of Americans first. That is our entire foreign policy. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to have alliances, that you're not going to work with other countries from time to time. And that is what the president believes, is that Israel, sometimes they have similar interests to the United States and we're going to work with them in that case. Sometimes they don't have similar interests to the United States. And this example, the most recent Gaza peace plan that all of us have been working on very hard for the past few weeks, the president of the United States could only get that peace deal done by actually being willing to apply leverage to the state of Israel. So when people say that Israel is somehow manipulating or controlling the president of the United States, they're not controlling this president of the United States, which is one of the reasons why we'd be able to have some of the success that we've had in the Middle East. Now, you ask about, sort of Jews disagreeing with Christians on certain religious ideas. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the realities is that Jews do not believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. Obviously, Christians do believe that. There are some significant theological disagreements between Christians and Jews. My attitude is, let's have those conversations. Let's have those disagreements when we have them. But if there are shared areas of interest, we ought to be willing to do that too. For example, one thing I really care about is the preservation of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Christians believe that that is the site where Jesus Christ was crucified, and also that his tomb is right there as well. My attitude is, if we can work with our friends in Israel to make sure that Christians have safe access to that site, that's an obvious area of common interest. I am fine with that. What I'm not okay with is any country coming before the interests of American citizens, and it is important for all of us, assuming we're American citizens, to put the interest of our own country first. That's what we're going to do. That's what we try to do every single day, I promise you.
Yeah. You can imagine how there are a lot of points in his response that he could be attacked because of them. Your take on his response?
Well, it was confused, defensive. Obviously, the issue isn't theological differences between Jews and Christians, or Jews and Christians and Muslims. We all have many things in common. We're all part of the same heritage, which is grounded in Judaism. Jesus Christ was a Jew, and Muslims believe he was the last great prophet before Muhammad, who Muslims believe God spoke directly to. So that's a confused response. Is it true that the United States shares an interest in conducting genocide in Gaza? That is pretty much what J.D. Vance implied. He said we're going to work with them when our interests coincide. Well, we've been all out in support of the ethnic cleansing in the West Bank, which is, by the way, accelerating. Israel just approved another 2,000 settlements for the West Bank. We've been all out also in terms of murdering Palestinians in Gaza. And in fact, the so-called Gaza peace plan, which the virtues of which J.D. Vance extolled, was a hollow thing from the very beginning. And there is no ceasefire in place. Israel is killing Palestinians every day at almost the same rate that it was doing before the so-called peace ceasefire went into effect. So J.D. Vance did not make a case in terms of America first. He simply made a series of assertions, but he didn't back them up. What is it that Israel does for the United States that justifies the sorts of subsidies that the United States provides to it? He didn't answer that question. Many people would say Israel doesn't do anything to justify those subsidies.
Yeah. And Ambassador, what is with looking at the situation right now in Israel? We had, as you know, last week I think we talked about it. Tom Brock, the U.S. ambassador to Turkey and envoy to Syria, he said that if the government in Lebanon doesn't disarm Hezbollah, Israel would do it by force. Today, we've learned that the government in Lebanon is sending the army to the southern part of Lebanon to confront Israelis. What was the plan? The plan was to separate the government from Hezbollah. It seems that they're pushing the two together.
Well, that is the natural effect. Let me go back for a moment to the J.D. Vance dialogue, because I think it's very significant that you get a young, obvious follower of Charlie Kirk raising the kinds of questions that he did. This is an indication of a division in the United States, which is increasingly acute. The government is not in tune with public opinion at all on the issue of Israel and Palestine. I just say that. On the issue of Lebanon, all along the Israeli approach to Lebanon has been to divide Lebanese. They've tried very hard to work with Christians and sometimes Sunnis against the Shia majority in Lebanon. The effort now that Ambassador Barak is pursuing is the disarmament of Hezbollah, but Hezbollah has been the only effective defense of Lebanon and its territory and people against continued Israeli depredations. There's supposed to be a ceasefire in Lebanon, but like every other ceasefire that Israel has agreed to, it has been constantly violated by the Israelis. Many Lebanese have been killed by drones from the air with airstrikes, and Israel is illegally occupying part of southern Lebanon. It has not withdrawn as it was meant to do. And I think in this circumstance, Lebanese nationalists, who include Christians, the President Aoun is a Christian, must respond to Israeli aggression. They have no choice. And so naturally, they make common cause basically with Hezbollah. And Israel, as you said, is the United States, which is fronting for Israel here, is driving Lebanese factions together against us and against Israel, which is not a wise thing to do.
Coming to Israel and the situation in Israel, we have a report from Knesset in Israel that shows 78% of suicide cases in Israel are coming from the soldiers and the reservists in Israel. And the other issue right now in Israel is the huge protests of ultra-Orthodox Israelis who don't want to be part of the army, part of the the operation in Gaza, on whatever that in Lebanon, Gaza, in Syria. And what is the problem within the society of Israel that they cannot understand their digging, their the problem, the situation is not getting easier for them as time goes by within the society when it comes to the economy, politically, these huge protests against the government. Is there any sort of understanding on the part of the Netanyahu government or his party to deal with that, or they don't care about what's going on inside as long as they have the support coming from the United States and the West? I'm talking about Germany and the United Kingdom.
Well, that's a very complicated question, I think. First, with regard to the suicides, apparently only 1 out of 7 attempts at suicide actually succeeds. But it's very clear that people in Israel, in the army reserves, who've been mobilized repeatedly to conduct atrocities in Gaza and the West Bank, is very stressed. People are very, very disturbed by what they see and what they have to do as part of the Israeli army. And the prediction is, I believe in that report, but perhaps from commentators on it, that in fact, when and if the war ever ends, there will be far more suicides on this issue. That is a common pattern. It has been a pattern for Americans, for example, who served in Afghanistan and Iraq. The things that they observed, the things they had to do, which stressed their moral sense, led many of them to take their lives out of a sense of guilt, and I think Israelis are no exception to that. The issue of the ultra-Orthodox is also a matter of war-related stress, because the Israeli army is short of manpower to conduct all of the various operations it is engaged in. You mentioned Lebanon, Syria. Of course, there were attacks on Iran. There are ongoing attacks on Yemen. There is an effort to push the Palestinians out of the West Bank, and we've had this war of annihilation, extermination, or genocide going on in Gaza. Therefore, the army feels that the ultra-Orthodox who are exempt from conscription should be subject to it and brought into the army, and should be required to defend Israel, the homeland that they live in. They don't agree, and they don't believe they have a duty to the Israeli state. Many of them consider, despite the fact that they're living under that state, they consider that state illegitimate religiously, and they consider Zionism to be a form of idolatry, to be a deviation, a perversion of Judaism. So this is a matter of principle for them, and I suppose it's also not understandable they don't want to get shot at or killed. So they demonstrate. And all of this is just indications of a society under extreme stress, a society that is basically failing to sustain itself. People are emigrating in large numbers. The economy is in deep trouble. The populace is disgruntled. Hostage families do not feel they got satisfaction. And there's a great deal of belligerence toward Hamas, toward Israel's Arab neighbors, toward Iran. I just read something. Someone went back to Vietnam 50 years after the American withdrawal to look at what the conditions were, and he found that the Vietnamese were not anti-American. They didn't hate Americans. And he asked them how they could possibly not hate Americans. And they said, well, we Vietnamese have small bodies, and if we fill them with hate, there will be no room for love. And I think Israelis are filled with hate, and they feel disturbed that there is no room for love left in that space.